in.
Thank you, Madam President. I rise in support of this amendment. We heard earlier today during the governor's speech several references to Thomas Paine, and I've read through Thomas Paine's pamphlets, and they're aptly titled Common Sense, which is something I talk a lot about, and I believe our constituents know common sense when they see it and are looking for this chamber and this legislative body to be using common sense. Now, some people can argue whether or not common sense prevails at times here in the chamber, and I'm happy to have that discussion later today if needed. But for the purposes of this amendment, this is a common sense amendment. We just heard that one of the reasons, in fact, the only short reason to vote against this is that there's a proper place and venue to bring it up. And that actually speaks to the concern of the underlying bill. There is a proper place and venue to bring up this bill. And that hasn't been done at all. And the public's been shut out of that. What this amendment gets to is when we hear, and we just heard today in the joint convention of the House and the Senate about affordability, this actually gets to affordability. And there is a wonderful precedent for this. I had a bill in last year and a bill this year that is modeled on what our colleagues in the Commonwealth of Massachusetts, a state I was born in, what they did. They have an actual state law. It actually went into effect many years ago and got used during the time of Governor Charlie Baker when he was governor of the Commonwealth, where there was excess taxation in income tax for the state. And the law kicked in and said above that a certain amount in a prorated manner for those who paid income taxes in the state in whatever that particular calendar year was, they would get a refund check. Now, some of the members, the Democratic majority of the Massachusetts General Legislature objected, but the Supreme Court of that state upheld the law. And people did get a refund because it recognized the principle that it's their money. And that's an extremely important concept, and my colleague, Senator Sampson, said it very well, that taxpayer money, public funds, belong to the people. Doesn't belong to government. There is nothing in the U.S. Constitution and its amendments or the Connecticut Constitution and its amendments that says that the money is actually the state's. It really is the people's. We all understand that and our constituents understand that. This will say that if we have this money, which we do, and it looks like that already out of that $500 million fund, if my numbers are correct, $169,188,046 has been spent, of which we have yet to actually see an audit or a full accounting of, let alone any serious legislative inquiry by any committee on it yet. The remaining money, this $330,811,954, that's the people's money. And what better to use that money on than the number one serious vote in action that the legislature takes, and the Senate is taking the lead, is to follow the advice of Governor Lamont and focus on affordability and return money per the provisions of this amendment to the people who filed a state income tax form and had to pay income taxes. Wouldn't that be a good use? Certainly they can use it when we are hearing about high heating bills. We don't need cold snaps to know the high cost of energy in this state. The cold snaps we experience from time to time just compound it, given how high bills are. People could use it to pay their bills for when they get home oil, or they have propane, or they have electricity bills if they heat by electricity. They can use it to buy groceries for their kids, buy medicines and for perhaps their elder ill parents, buy clothing that they might need. This is money that actually would go right to the people who paid it. And if you talk about making investments in our economies, we have seen time and time again, just not in the state of Connecticut, but throughout the United States, and I dare say the territories and the District of Columbia, that the money doesn't get put into a savings account, it is spent. And that trickles into the economy for our local businesses and things like that. With that said, this is a common sense amendment. And to vote no basically tells constituents that we talk about affordability, but we're really not going to act for affordability. We can do different. We can chew gum and walk at the same time. We can talk about affordability, and we can act for affordability. This amendment drives that. And if one doesn't want to support the amendment, I would love to hear more reasons why on the merits of the amendment. But again, I understand about processes, but we're in a situation where those processes have already been pushed to the side and ignored, purposefully, I think. And so we can't then say, well, this amendment should be brought up following whatever processes the legislature has. That has already been trashed, given the underlying bill, the way it's being brought out. And I hope my constituents are watching my actions to see that, yes, we can do something significant that this amendment drives at, to return money directly to the people who paid it, who probably can't really afford to be paying these taxes, especially at a time when state policies have been driving up property taxes for them, at a time of reevaluation of their properties. They can benefit from this. And what better time to do that than to do it now on opening day with the real first serious bill before us and vote that we would take? What a terrible message it would send if one just, by default, without any explanation from all senators who will vote against this, why we shouldn't be doing this. You're hearing from us why we think it is. And I bet you if we were to do a poll of our constituents, it would be overwhelming that not only would they want some of their taxpayer money back, because it is their money, but they need that money back, and they can use that money for good purposes. That we all know that list. So again, in a day that we've heard about affordability, in a day we've heard about common sense, this hits both. And let's support this and help our constituents. Shame if that doesn't happen. I'm a realist. I understand that likely this will be voted down on a party line without any serious or meaningful explanation why. But that would have to then be explained to constituents. And I look forward to that because I know exactly how I can explain this to constituents. That I'm there looking to help, and my Senate Republican colleagues are looking to help them. And this is a serious, meaningful proposal that we're just not pulling this out of a hat. There's precedent for it. And if another state can do this effectively, why can't we? So with that said, Madam President, I urge support of this, and it has many reasons why it should be supported and 0 reasons why it should not be supported. Thank you.